Hi guys, γεια σας και καλώς ήρθατε to another episode of Dimitra's Dishes. Today we're making Greek Tiganites, which are known as Greek pancakes, but they're nothing like American style pancakes because these have yeast in them and they really taste like loukoumades. Loukoumades are the Greek donuts, except a flatter version. They're so delicious. They're the perfect treat to have any time of day with a nice cup of coffee. I mean, you could eat them for breakfast. I'm really not a big fan of eating dessert for breakfast, but if that's what you like, if you want to make it for a nice Sunday brunch, it would be perfect. They're delicious and so simple to make. These can be made vegan by leaving out the honey. The honey is a topping that these are traditionally served with, but I keep forgetting that honey is not vegan, but you can definitely substitute maple syrup as a topping and they'll be the perfect vegan dessert. Let's get started. So we're going to start off in a big bowl. You don't need a mixer for this. 2 cups of water. This is lukewarm water. Lukewarm water is important. You don't want it to be hot or cold, so that way the yeast can do its thing. We're going to add 2 teaspoons of sugar, 1 teaspoon of active dry yeast, and I know that this yeast is alive and well because I made a few batches of bread with it today, so I don't need to wait for it to proof. It should be perfectly fine. So I'm going to add 2 cups of all-purpose flour, a little bit of salt, just a 1/4 teaspoon will do, and a teaspoon of pure vanilla extract. You can add a 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon to this if you really wanted to, but I'm going to add cinnamon to the nut mixture that I'm going to serve on top. I'm going to serve a baklava nut mixture on top of this. That's going to be delicious. So I'm going to leave the dough part, the batter, I should say, just plain and simple, just the way it is. Go ahead and whisk it together until it's nice and smooth, and it should be a pretty thin batter. You're not looking for a bread dough here, so keep mixing. Once the lumps disappear, it's going to be ready. And vanilla just makes everything smell so good. That is looking good. This is the consistency that you're looking for. I'm going to set this aside for 20-30 minutes just so that way it can rise just a tiny bit. Okay, so the batter is ready, and the good thing about this batter, if you're doing it for like a brunch or for a big group of people, or you want to prepare a little bit ahead of time, you can make this batter a day ahead of time, cover it with plastic wrap or put it in an airtight container. Make sure the container does have some room because the yeast will cause it to rise a little bit. And just leave it in the refrigerator overnight and then just take it out in the morning. Once you get everything ready, it'll come to room temperature and it'll be ready to fry. It's pretty much the same thing like loukoumades. You could do the same exact thing with loukoumades. You can make the batter a day ahead of time and keep it refrigerated. Now for the topping, the classic topping for this is walnuts, just simple walnuts, but I like to jazz them up a little bit. I chopped them up, and to them, so a cup of chopped walnuts, I added a teaspoon of ground cinnamon and a 1/4 teaspoon of ground cloves. That's going to give it that really nice baklava taste. Set it aside. Now you can leave nuts out if you're sensitive to them, but I really like the texture. And then I'm going to drizzle honey on top. But now in Greece, they started to modernize things, and some people like to put a chocolate hazelnut spread on top and make it a little fancy. Basically, anything you would put over a crepe or over a loukouma, you could do with this too. I have a frying pan that's heating over medium-high heat. Now to that, I'm just going to basically coat the bottom with some olive oil. This is light olive oil. Now, I'm not using a candy thermometer to check the temperature, but if you are going to do that, the temperature needs to go to 370 degrees Fahrenheit. Between 360 to 370 is ideal. And then the next tool that's really handy to have is either this small ice cream scoop or this bigger ice cream scoop. They make these bite-sized in Greece, so 2 scoops of the small, using the small scoop is the perfect size. But sometimes that gets a little bit tedious, so I just like to fill this up a 1/4 of the way and then it does its thing. So let's see if the oil is hot. It's good to test it with a little tiny bit of batter. And it's not ready yet. What you're looking for is for it to bubble up and rise. If the oil is too cool, what's going to happen is the tiganites are going to absorb the oil and be greasy, and you don't want that. You want them to be nice and fluffy, crispy on the exterior, nice and soft on the interior. Same thing, you don't want the oil to be too hot, where it burns the outside and leaves the inside uncooked. So I'm gonna wait a few minutes so that way the oil can come to temperature, then we're gonna start frying. So the oil is nice and hot. So I'll show you how it works with the mini ice cream scoop. So there would be 2 little scoops. It's the same thing with the big scoop. I just fill it up just a quarter of the way. But there's no magic size for these. You can make them as small or as big as your heart desires. And we're just gonna fry them about a few minutes on each side until they're golden all around. The Tiganitas are all ready. I did have to move from this burner that I have over here set up for doing videos to my back burner because for some reason the oil's temperature was too low and they were looking very pale to me, and the last thing you want is greasy pancakes or greasy donuts. So I moved to the back and then they got beautifully golden. Keep an eye on them because they should become golden after about 2 minutes or so. If not, make sure to raise the temperature up a little bit higher so that way they fry up beautifully. Now the way I like to serve them up is first of all with a nice hot cup of Greek coffee. It tastes so good with this, washes down perfectly. And then I like to put 2 on a plate, drizzle some honey in between. You can also put the nut mixture in between or on top, however you like it. It's up to you, but once you break into them or cut into them, the outside should be nice and crispy and the inside should be really soft. Can you tell that I can't wait to take a bite? Time to give it a taste. This is delicious. The inside is pillowy soft. Honey, if you have Greek honey, that is the best kind to use. Otherwise, whatever local honey you have, or even maple syrup will go on top of these. Let me wash this down with a little bit of Greek coffee. I'm in heaven, you guys. So you head on over to the website, dimitrasdishes.com, print this recipe out. You see how easy it is, like 5-6 ingredients. They're all inexpensive, and this should feed about 4 or 5 people, maybe a few more. Thank you guys so much for spending time with me today. I'll see you all next time. Yes,